the helm of a business empire. But more than that, it was about the fragile bridge I was trying to rebuild with David, my son. David. Our relationship had been strained for years, stretched thin by misunderstandings, resentment, and silence. His words from our past still echoed in my mind, the accusations, the anger, the pain of a son feeling abandoned. Yet beneath that hardness, I sensed a deep longing to reconnect to heal the wounds time had deepened. Our conversations were tentative at first, loaded with pauses and unspoken emotions. But slowly, they began to change. One evening, as we sat in the living room after a long day of meetings, David surprised me by breaking the silence. "Dad," he said quietly, looking away for a moment, "I want to apologize." I looked up, surprised by the earnestness in his voice. "I've been so focused on the business, on what I thought you did wrong, that I forgot what really matters. I want to really try to rebuild what we lost." A lump rose in my throat. I nodded slowly. "That means more to me than you know. Forgiveness isn't easy, David, but it's the first step toward healing." At work, I faced a different kind of challenge. Navigating the complex world of corporate politics and business strategy was daunting. Many in the company viewed me as an outsider, someone who had stumbled into a position he wasn't prepared for. Their skepticism was palpable, and I had to prove day by day that I was worthy of the trust Rebecca had placed in me. Susan, Rebecca's trusted assistant, remained my steadfast ally. Her knowledge of the company's inner workings was invaluable. She patiently explained the nuances of our operations, the challenges we faced, and the legacy Rebecca had left behind. Together, we worked on projects that reflected Rebecca's vision, not just profit margins, but community impact. One initiative involved partnering with local schools to offer internships and mentorships to young people, a dream Rebecca had nurtured but never fully realized. Implementing the program was challenging with budget constraints and logistical hurdles. But seeing the enthusiasm of students and staff alike reminded me of why this work mattered beyond numbers on a spreadsheet. With each success, the company slowly began to shift. Employees started to see me less as a newcomer and more as a leader willing to listen and learn. The culture of the company began to reflect Rebecca's values: integrity, community, and growth. David and I continued to navigate our complex relationship. Our discussions, once marked by tension and recrimination, now included moments of vulnerability and understanding. We shared stories of Rebecca, her fierce determination, her moments of doubt, and her love for both of us. We talked about our hopes for the future and the family we wanted to become. It wasn't always easy. Old wounds sometimes reopened, and frustration bubbled to the surface. But we faced those moments with honesty, determined not to let the past define us. Outside the office, my world expanded slowly. I reconnected with neighbors like Ellen Parker, whose sharp tongue softened into genuine conversations about life and community. Her grumbling about sprinkler leaks became a backdrop to shared laughter and mutual understanding. In quiet moments on my porch, watching the seasons change, I reflected on the journey. The inheritance was more than wealth or power. It was a chance to rebuild, a chance to honor Rebecca's memory, to mend broken bonds, and to grow into the man and father I aspired to be. The road ahead remained uncertain, filled with challenges I couldn't yet foresee. But with every step, I embraced the responsibility and the opportunity to make a difference. I was no longer just James Miller, the man who once worried about broken sprinklers and cold coffee. I was a leader, a father and a man, determined to create a legacy of love, forgiveness, and hope. The days were growing longer, and with them, so was my resolve. Each morning I rose determined to meet the challenges ahead, not only as the leader of Flores Consulting Solutions, but as a father trying to rebuild a family fractured by time and misunderstanding. The inheritance Rebecca had left was more than just money or property. It was an opportunity to heal and to grow. At the company, my role evolved rapidly. I spent hours reviewing reports, attending meetings, and meeting with executives and employees alike. Some viewed me with skepticism, whispering doubts about my ability to lead. Others offered tentative support, appreciating my honesty and willingness to listen. I took every conversation seriously, knowing that trust had to be earned, not given. David and I continued to work side by side, our relationship slowly mending. We spent long hours discussing strategies, debating decisions, and sharing memories of Rebecca, her strength, her vision, and her love for both of us. These conversations were difficult, but necessary. They reminded me that beneath the business challenges were human stories of loss, hope, and forgiveness. One afternoon, Susan invited me to tour the community programs Rebecca had envisioned, but not yet launched. We visited local schools where Flores Consulting Solutions had pledged scholarships and mentorships. The students' faces were bright with curiosity and ambition, a living testament to the impact the company could have beyond profits. Seeing this gave me a renewed sense of purpose. I realized that my leadership was not just about managing assets, but about nurturing dreams and giving back to the community that had supported us. At home, the distance between David and me narrowed. We began sharing more than business plans. We shared meals, laughter, and sometimes the quiet companionship of two men trying to heal old wounds. There were still moments of tension, but they were fewer and less intense. One evening, David surprised me by bringing home a photo album filled with pictures of Rebecca smiling at family gatherings, celebrating birthdays, and candid moments of joy. We sat together, flipping through the pages, memories bridging the years that had separated us. "It's strange," David said softly, "how much I missed." "I did too," I admitted. "But it's never too late to start again." The journey was far from over. Challenges awaited: boardroom battles, legal complexities, and the ongoing work of rebuilding trust. But for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. Rebecca had left me more than an inheritance. She had left me a chance to redefine my life, to honor her memory, by living with integrity and purpose. As summer settled over Cheyenne, I stood on my porch, breathing in the warm evening air. The city lights twinkled in the distance, a reminder that even after the darkest nights, there was always the promise of a new dawn. I was ready. Taking the reins of Flores Consulting Solutions was like stepping onto a vast, unfamiliar stage. Each day brought new challenges, financial decisions, strategic planning, and navigating the complex web of relationships that kept the company alive. Yet beneath these challenges lay something even harder to manage: the lingering doubts, both mine and those around me. The board members were a mixed bag. Some welcomed the fresh perspective I brought, while others were wary, their eyes reflecting skepticism rooted in my unconventional background. A few questioned whether a man without a formal business education or decades of corporate experience could truly lead the empire Rebecca had built. I felt their doubts keenly, but I refused to let them define me. I knew I had to prove my worth, not just through words, but actions. I spent long nights studying financial reports and market trends, soaking in knowledge like a sponge. David remained by my side, his expertise invaluable, but our relationship was still a work in progress. Our discussions sometimes flared into disagreement, his sharp critiques challenging my decisions, mine tempered by a desire to listen and learn. One particularly difficult day, I faced a major decision regarding a proposed acquisition. The deal had the potential to expand the company's reach, but also carried significant risks. During the board meeting, voices clashed. Some argued for the acquisition. Others feared it might stretch resources too thin. I listened carefully before weighing in, drawing on what I had learned and my own instincts. "I believe this is a calculated risk worth taking," I said, my voice steady. Rebecca was a visionary, and I want to honor her legacy by being bold when it counts. David nodded slowly, then added, "With proper oversight, I think we can manage the risks and make this work." The motion passed a small but meaningful victory that boosted my confidence. Outside the boardroom, I sought to connect with the employees, the heart of the company. I began hosting monthly town halls, inviting staff to share their ideas and concerns. These meetings were humbling, but also inspiring. Their dedication reminded me why Rebecca had poured so much of herself into this company. At home, David and I continued to rebuild our relationship, sharing stories, hopes, and even regrets. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the stars, he said, "I'm proud of you, Dad." More than I expected. His words touched me deeply. But the path ahead was still uncertain. Challenges lurked: corporate rivals, market fluctuations, and the ever-present pressure to grow and innovate. I knew I couldn't do it alone. With renewed determination, I reached out to community leaders, seeking partnerships that aligned with our values. I also began mentoring young employees, hoping to nurture the next generation of leaders Rebecca had envisioned. Through it all, the lessons from Rebecca's letter echoed in my mind about character integrity and the true meaning of success. Each day, I grew more certain that this inheritance was not just a gift, but a responsibility to honor the past, embrace the present, and build a future that mattered. And as the seasons turned in Cheyenne, so did the tides of my life. If you're still watching, comment 1. So I know you're still with me. Family betrayal. Taking on the role of chairman was more than just a title. It was a profound transformation, one that tested not only my business acumen, but also my character. Every day I faced decisions that demanded careful thought, courage, and above all, integrity. Rebecca's legacy was a beacon guiding me through moments of uncertainty and challenge. One morning, as the sun cast long shadows across the conference room, I sat with David and Susan reviewing quarterly reports. The numbers were promising, but beneath them lay stories of people whose lives were touched by our work. I found myself thinking about the employees, the communities, and the responsibility we bore beyond profits. David, who had once been skeptical of my leadership, now stood as a partner. Our conversations had matured, grounded in mutual respect and a shared vision. Yet the journey to get here had not been easy. We had faced disagreements, moments of frustration, and the lingering pain of past wounds. I remembered the nights spent reading Rebecca's letters, her words a constant reminder that success without character was hollow. She had taught me, even from beyond the grave, that true leadership meant serving others, listening with empathy, and embracing humility. With that in mind, I initiated a series of workshops focused on ethical leadership and community engagement. The response was overwhelming. Employees, from executives to entry-level staff, embraced the opportunity to connect values with action. I saw firsthand how culture could shape a company's destiny. At home, David and I continued to rebuild our bond. We shared stories of Rebecca, her triumphs and struggles, and talked openly about our own hopes and fears. Those moments were precious, a healing balm for years of silence. One evening, David surprised me with a photo album filled with snapshots from our family history, old vacations, birthdays, quiet moments of joy. As we flipped through the pages, laughter and tears mingled, weaving a tapestry of memories that reminded us of what truly mattered. Through these experiences, I came to understand that inheritance was not just about wealth, but about legacy values passed from one generation to the next, the courage to forgive and the strength to grow. As summer gave way to fall in Cheyenne, the city took on a golden hue. The changing leaves mirrored the transformations in my life. I was no longer just a man inheriting a fortune. I was a man embracing responsibility, rebuilding family, and honoring love. Rebecca's final gift had been more than money. It was a chance to become the man I was meant to be. And for that, I was deeply grateful. The crisp autumn air in Cheyenne carried with it a sense of change, not just in the world around me, but within myself. As the leaves turned shades of amber and crimson, so too did my perspective shift, shaped by the challenges and growth.